Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago Opposition's media briefing this Sunday, the 6th of October, 2024, discussing the energy and social services sector. Today, presenting are MP David Lee, the Shadow for Energy, and MP Vandana Mohit, Shadow for Social Development and Family Services. Thank you for joining us. We will begin our broadcast shortly. In the meanwhile, please share the live.
Everybody now, let's go. Come on, come on. Hey. Whoa, oh, whoa, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, oh, whoa, oh, yeah. It's time to make a difference. It's time to turn that page. We got to do the right things if we want brighter days. Cause things ain't getting easy and the road ahead is tough. It's up to you and I to make the madness stop. Every day the things getting harder, and every day the things getting rough, and every day they hike the food prices and they implementing more tax. For the sake of our twin nation and the youth of the next generation, let's stand united, show we not divided. Let's show them now and send them a message now.
Show them that we're the voice of hope.
Send them a message now.
Show them that our country ain't no joke.
Send them a message now.
Show them that we're the ones who care.
Send them a message now.
Oh, 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 yeah, yeah.
Everybody now. Whoa, oh, whoa, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, oh, whoa, oh, yeah, yeah.
From a distance, look at the picture. Tell me what you see.
What you see?
An abstract of destruction to destroy you and me. We got to do the right thing. We got to make that move. Cause if we don't act fast on this, we're the ones who lose.
Every day the things getting harder, and every day the things getting rough, and every day they hike the food prices and they implementing more tax. For the sake of our twin nation and the youth of the next generation, let's stand united, show we not divided. Let's show them now and send them a message now.
Show them that we are the voice of hope.
Send them a message now.
Show them that our country ain't no joke.
Send them a message now.
Show them that we are the ones who care.
Send them a message now.
Oh, 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 yeah, yeah.
Okay, good morning to our viewers, listeners out there in the World Wide Web who have joined us this morning for our Opposition Sunday morning presser. Even though, ladies and gentlemen, that the country is in full budget debate, the opposition felt it was necessary to continue doing our press conferences while our other members, our other MPs, prepare to debate this in this coming week and continue the budget debate. On Monday, the 30th of September, 2024, we listened for 5 hours and 12 minutes to a budget presentation presented by the Minister of Finance. It was his 10th budget presentation for 2025 financial, and we really hope it would be his last. Minister of Finance, Minister Imbert, themed his budget presentation on September the 30th as steadfast and resolute, forging pathways to prosperity. And in other words, when you read that document, our team, and it should be, when you read that entire document, or you even listen to Minister Imbert, it is all about lies, cries, and mama guys. On Friday last, the leader of the opposition, the member of Siparia, the Honorable Kamla Prasad Visesa, presented her presentation in response to Minister Imbert's budget statement on September the 30th. The leader of the opposition teamed her budget presentation, and I will refresh our memories, she teamed it, a decade of debt, deficits, destabilization, death, and destruction. And really and truly, when we listened to the presentation of Mrs. Prasad Visesa on Friday, it was very clear, concise. She rolled out her policies for her party in respect to certain sectors, and it really gave a holistic approach and view to when the UNC forms the next government of what our plans and policies would be. And we roll it out again later today, this morning, and I have the pleasure of being joined this morning by my sister, my colleague, my parliamentarian colleague, my sister, the MP for Chaguanas East, Ms. Vandana Mohit, who also shadows as a portfolio in the Ministry of Social and Welfare. So I have the pleasure this morning of asking Vandana to come up and present her views of what this budget presented by the Minister of Finance in respect of even her constituency of Chaguanas East, and her views in respect of the entire budget, in respect of the social welfare of our country. So Vandana, I pass over to you.
Thank you very much, Chief Whip and my colleague, MP David Lee. Well, once again, I say good morning to members of the press and, of course, to the fellow citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and all those who continue to endure the severe hardships imposed by this PNM government. And I stand before you today not only as the Member of Parliament for Chaguanas East, but as a concerned citizen who is witnessing the erosion of fairness and equity in our society. And let me make it clear, the UNC, we as a team who sit in the House of Representatives, we are focused on rebuilding Trinidad and Tobago. We will not get into the charade of lie, cry, and mama guy being displayed by the PNM. We are focused on rebuilding this country from a decade of destruction. And I want you, the citizens, to understand that we have faced a decade of destruction, and the UNC is focused and we are ready on to rebuild Trinidad and Tobago. Today we must shed light on a troubling reality, the way in which the PNM has shrouded its so-called digital economy into political nepotism, particularly in its administration of social services. And we believe that this digital economy is being deliberately manipulated, and deliberately manipulated not for the benefit of all citizens, but to consolidate power of the PNM. And as I move and continue into the charade of lie, cry, and mama guy of the PNM, I want to touch on the illusion of digital economy for all, which the PNM has been preaching. And viewers, the digital transformation of our economy, if implemented correctly, equitably, it could be a game changer for our nation. And it holds the potential to modernize public services, streamline access, and ensure that the most vulnerable among us receive the support they need swiftly and efficiently. But once again, we are living the illusion of a digital economy for all under the PNM. Because under the PNM's governance, this noble vision of digitalization has been turned into a facade, a digital economy not for the people, a digital economy for political patronage. And we have seen clear evidence that the social services sector, specifically programs intended to alleviate poverty, programs intended to distribute financial aid and provide housing support, has been captured by the PNM's political machinery. Let's look at digitization. When we look at digitization, with the digitization of social services, what have the PNM really done? The PNM government has made access to critical services more difficult for individuals who are not within their political fold. What have they really done as it relates to digitization? You know what's happening when we look at this digitalization that the PNM is speaking of? You have the threat of exclusion taking place, where citizens, particularly in rural communities or marginalized communities, they often lack the necessary digital literacy or access to even internet services to navigate these newly digitalized systems. So really and truly, the government is mamagaying the country as it relates to digitalization. Citizens are facing more stress and problems on a daily basis in terms of accessing government services, when the government is really telling us each and every day that through the digitalization, the citizens of this country, they are supposed to receive better service delivery in a quicker manner. As I move to the financial burdens and stress in which citizens are facing today, I want to deal a little bit with taxes. The PNM has really provided no economic relief to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. When you look at the PNM's governance over the last 5 years, you can only see increases in the financial burden of our citizens. And one of the key commitments of the UNC is our firm stance against new taxes. Because we recognize that the working class and the poor are bearing the brunt of rising costs in almost every area of their living. Groceries, utilities, transportation, and even education. And the last thing our citizens need, and most importantly our vulnerable citizens, is additional burdens in the form of new taxes. The Prime Minister of this country, and also the government, the PNM government, and we must remember PNM government, they are placing our citizens into increased financial burdens. The PNM has said to you that persons have lined up outside inland revenue offices because they are interested in paying property tax. But really and truly, they have failed to tell you the truth as they continue on their charade of lie, cry, and mamagai. What has really happened is this government has instilled fear into the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And paying your property tax, in simplicity, it is the law of this country. So we have law-abiding citizens who are simply obeying the law. That's why they are lining up outside the inland revenue offices to pay their taxes, braving the rains, the sun, etc. So it's not that citizens are interested in paying taxes. Citizens, despite their financial burdens, they are cutting and fitting because of the fear instilled in them by the PNM. And of course, they are law-abiding citizens. And they are afraid if they disobey the law, what challenges they may face after that. So the PNM has done no favor. and people lining up outside Board of Inland Revenue offices is not that they agree with your policies, but they are simply fearful of what may be next for them. So, as we move on, as it relates to the lie, cry, and mama guy charade of the PNM really and truly continue to fool the citizens. And when we look at the social services sector, this government, the Minister of Finance, he has said to the population that they cannot increase any social grants just yet. So you have to wait until 2027 and so on to see if you will get an increase in any of the established grants, the Senior Citizens Grant, Disability Grant, Public Assistance Grant, etc. I want to deal a little bit of what has been lacking in the social sector under this government, the PNM government. What has been lacking is people-centered retreat programs to lift and empower our poor and vulnerable. The PNM has been lacking vision for the social sector. They have been lacking a people-centered approach. And really and truly, a government's success is measured by how well it serves its poor and vulnerable. They have been lacking poverty alleviation programs to empower those vulnerable persons in various communities across Trinidad and Tobago. They have been lacking, their fiscal policies have been lacking community revitalization programs where we would have had under the UNC community-based initiatives to empower those persons, those poor and vulnerable persons. The PNM fiscal policies continue to lack accessible and efficient services in the social sector. And I want to deal a little bit with the disabled community. And we in the UNC want to make it abundantly clear that the cries of the disabled communities, the cries of the disabled community in Trinidad and Tobago have not been answered in this appropriation bill, this budget 2025. The disabled community, they hoped for better means tests. They hope for caregivers so that parents of disabled children and so on could go out there and work and have an additional income because the disability grant, it's just insufficient. They hoped for government subvention, imagine that, to be paid to them, to be given to the NGOs, etc. on time. Can you imagine that disabled people, they have no choice. They have not asked to be disabled, but they have to be begging and pleading prior to the budget. And even after the budget, they have nothing to really answer to their cries as to what they face on a daily basis. The PNM, as I move on, their fiscal measures have lacked any expansion in the social safety net. Time and time again, the Minister of Finance will come with one figure, 5 billion, I believe it is, spent on social services. Each year, the Minister of Finance will keep repeating this. So really and truly, in terms of protecting and expanding the social safety net, you have none of that happening. You have no new programs being implemented to help families arising out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Who is ensuring that no child goes hungry, no family is homeless, no individual is left behind? Who is ensuring that this rental grant is really reaching those who need it? Because you have so many persons being evicted because they simply cannot pay their rent. You have so many people moving to rent because they cannot get affordable housing under this government. So really and truly, the PNM's policies have really had no positive impact on the citizens of this country. And It has had no positive impact in terms of increased economic participation, no job opportunities, no retraining of citizens. You would hear from my colleague who would speak next about TechVoc. He's always advocating for that. The PNM's policies, it has had no positive impact on improved access to social services. Social services offices have become a center of bad attitudes. When persons are going there for assistance, it has become a center, the social services sector has become a center of lost documents, and we are speaking digitization. It has become a center and a sector of long waiting periods where persons are awaiting pension 1 year, 2 years after they have applied and was approved. This social services sector has really become a sector of stress, which is worsening for our citizens of this country. And really and truly, PNM policies have not, shown any improvement in the reduction of poverty and inequality. And I want to speak a little bit to special education. You would hear the cries everywhere that special ed, it is not becoming easier for those citizens who require it. You would hear about jobs for the disabled community. When we speak equality, social equity, the workforce is not embracing them. It's not widening to accept them. And of course, the means test distress. When we speak reduction of poverty and inequality, the means test stress continues. Persons are afraid to face the means test. So persons are having issues applying, much less to become approved and a part of the social system. So you have that fear being instilled even in the social sector. The PNM's policies again continue to lack any type of strengthening in the various communities, to have that revitalization in the various communities. And most of all, I want you, the citizens, to understand that the policies of the PNM lack any dignity and lack any hope for you, the citizens. And I want to move to another important point, given that I have just said that PNM policies lack any dignity and hope for the citizens. And that is the government's failure to protect our children. And I want to specifically, make a mention. A couple hours ago, the leader of the opposition, the political leader as well, would have, and I want to read, would have put out a Facebook post on young Jaden Lalchan, one of our young persons, one of our students of this country who would have committed suicide. And the opposition leader said, there are reports that Jaden suffered tremendously over an extended period of abuse and bullying. If these allegations are proven to be true, justice must be served on all who terrorized this beautiful child and all who turned a blind eye to his suffering. I will ensure that a heavy price will be paid by all those involved in tormenting and terrorizing this child into taking his own life. May he finally find peace in the arms of God. There you have it from the opposition leader. And we will join her in ensuring that justice is served for Jaden Lalchan. I understand that MP Barry Padarat is on his way to the family this morning. And this speaks to us in the continued fight against school violence, school bullying, and suicides in our nation. On May 13, 2024, we, the opposition, would have brought a matter on the adjournment on rising suicide in Trinidad and Tobago. Members of the government bench giggled when we brought that matter on the adjournment. And we continue to call on the government to expand beyond a hotline and deal with these issues of school bullying and suicides in Trinidad and Tobago. Get these programs into the schools so that, children can speak out, speak to someone and receive the assistance that they need. And ladies and gentlemen, as I move on, we are once again troubled, we are once again confronted with the deeply troubling and ongoing failures at children's homes across the nation. Despite numerous reports, investigations, and promises of reform, the neglect, abuse, and unsafe conditions that our country's children face in these institutions continue unabated. And it is clear that the government's approach in addressing these shortcomings facing our children is both alarming and unacceptable. And today we ask, what has become of the National Child Policy of Trinidad and Tobago? This was a PNM's promise in their manifesto. And time again, year after year, we keep hearing National Child Policy. What has become of the National Child Policy of Trinidad and Tobago? We say enough is enough, and it is time for this government to act and to step up. I want to touch a little bit as well on the people's reality versus PNM's extravagance. The people's reality versus PNM's extravagance. The PNM continues to tell us that there are limited resources and that the country must exercise fiscal discipline and the citizens must prepare for tough times. But as they ask us to sacrifice, they have allocated $50 million for entertainment, parties, and galas. How can this government justify such extravagant spending when so many of our people are being told to tighten their belts and to do more with less? We say that this is a slap in the face to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, citizens who are forced each and every day to make sacrifices to survive. $50 million for entertainment while the social services sector crumble. $50 million for entertainment whilst the social services sector crumble. Whilst millions are being funneled to fund lavish state functions, our social services sector are underfunded and overwhelmed. The very same budget that sets aside this massive allocation for entertainment leaves critical programs underfunded. Programs that are meant to serve the poorest and the most vulnerable under our society. The disability grant continues to be inadequate, with many persons living with disabilities unable to access even basic services. As I said before, no answers to the cry of the disabled community. Food support program are suffering from funding shortages, meaning that many families are not getting the relief they need to feed their children. Housing crisis continues because persons are no longer qualifying for homes under the TTMB and the HDC. So in a country where unemployment is high, the cost of living continues to rise. The poverty levels are escalating. And how can the Prime Minister's office really justify $50 million on entertainment? Friends of Trinidad and Tobago, viewers, healthcare is neglected. Healthcare is neglected while state functions flourish. Social services sector is neglected whilst state functions flourish. Education sector is neglected whilst state functions flourish. Do you know what $50 million could have done for the social services sector and the vulnerable citizens of this country? Let me share with you what could have been done. Let us be clear. $50 million allocated for entertainment and functions could have been used to address urgent, real-world issues that affect the daily lives of citizens. It could have been used to provide tablets and computers for school children in need. Many children across Trinidad and Tobago still lack this basic tool to participate in the digital learning environment. $50 million could have been directed to housing and fixing the issues with homelessness in our country. $50 million could have been directed towards health care. The healthcare system, which is facing so many issues, long lists for surgeries, lacking CDAP medication. You go with a prescription, you cannot even get your medication that you require, which you get from your various clinics. $50 million could have definitely been redirected to social support programs like the food cards, like the senior citizens grants. This wasted $50 million could have been used to improve these programs by providing immediate relief. And then we could have spoken about pathways to prosperity, to which the Minister of Finance budget team speaks to. So what is really happening in our country is the PNM priorities are bad. It's lacking. The PNM priority is really lavish spending over people's welfare. That is what this PNM priority is. Lavish spending over people's welfare in this country. What the PNM's allocations reveal is the true priorities of their government to prioritize extravagance over the needs of the people. And what their actions demonstrate is a complete disconnection from the realities faced by you, the citizens. So all in all, it's just bad governance, all sides. They have not been accountable to you, the citizens. They have failed to account to you, to show you really and truly how they have improved your lives as citizens. And you speak it every day, you yourself, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. You see your nation's roads. You see it for yourself when you visit the health institutions, when you visit the social welfare offices. No improvement in those offices. Time and time again, you go there, it's the same old. I'm sure you remember when our senior citizens had to stand in the rains just recently in this country. So we cannot call on the government to reconsider their allocation, because they are just based on lavish spending over your welfare, over you, the people, welfare. So we ask of you, the citizens, to hold strain, to read, to view the nation's television, view the parliament channel, and you will see how the PNM cannot account for how they have spent your monies, the people of this nation monies. In closing, as I give way to my colleague, I want to remind you, the people, do not be distracted by the PNM. They share propaganda. They are on a charade to lie, cry, and mamagai. I want to just remind you of the issues that you face on a daily basis. Every one of you viewing would have lost a family member awaiting a hospital bed on the corridors of the hospital even. Every one of you know a family or friend who would have died awaiting pension, who would have died awaiting disability and other social services grants. Every one of you viewing would have known a family or friend, an elderly person who would have died awaiting a caregiver, who would have died, a disabled person who would have died awaiting a caregiver. Every one of you know children in this country, a family, a friend, a neighbor who would have dropped out of school because they had no books to go to school, who would have dropped out of school during COVID because they had no device to participate in online classes. Every one of you viewing here today would know children who would not have been able to attend school because their parents could not afford basic food. Every one of you viewing would have lost a family member or friend or neighbor to crime. So do not forget, my friends, do not forget, viewers. This government would have budgeted time and time again, telling you they are taking you towards stability. They are taking you towards the pathway to prosperity. They are a responsible government, but really and truly, let us share with you, they are a irresponsible government. They are claiming to govern you responsibly, but they are an irresponsible government with no morals as it relates to governance for you, our people of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you very much, and I now hand you over to our Chief Whip and my colleague, MP for Pointe-a-Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you, Vandana, MP for Chaguanas East, for a very comprehensive presentation here this morning. A continuation from Friday when Vandana would have presented and debated in the House on Friday afternoon when Donna Cox, the Minister for Social, presented and Vandana rebutted everything that Minister Cox would have said in respect to social. Vandana is correct, and you would have seen, your listeners and viewers out there, the slide that was up, and if I can ask Kevin to put up that slide of the $50 million for parties that is part of the allocation under the Office of the Prime Minister. And Vandana would have shown you here this morning would have said to you what $50 million could have done or could do to assist the people of Trinidad and Tobago, especially the vulnerable in our society. And it is strange that kind of money is being allocated under the Office of the Prime Minister, when last week, before the budget was read on Friday, the 30th of September, the Prime Minister was down in Point Forte doing a 25th anniversary and restructuring at the Atlantic LNG plant in Point Forte. And the headlines in one of the dailies the next day would have been Prime Minister saying, difficult years ahead. Difficult years ahead, right? And next to, on my right, you would see $50 million for parties under the allocation of the Office of the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister would have said in that release, hold fort. He's telling the people of Trinidad and Tobago, hold the fort. This was a statement from the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, who said this year, until the second quarter of 2027, will be a period of difficulty for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So the Prime Minister last week, before Minister of Finance presented his budget statement, is saying to the people of our country, after 10 years, 9 years and counting, going into 10 years, of being in control of this country, being in control of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, months before general election, he's coming to tell you, the citizen of our country, difficult years ahead. Hold forth until 2027 or 2028. But he is allocating, with the Minister of Finance, $50 million for parties and celebration under the Office of the Prime Minister. If that is not hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen, here this morning, I do not know what is. And that is the point we in the opposition have been saying over the last 9+ years, going to 10. Under this present administration, they keep fooling the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is one for everybody else and one for them. So do not judge them. They are saying, hold fort, but we partying. That is hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen. And I will delve a little bit more into my presentation this morning. On Monday at 10 a.m., on Friday at 10 a.m., we listened to the presentation of the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, Member for Superior. With the start, and I want to say, with the start of the 2025 budget debate on Friday, as I mentioned, the opposition has launched a strong fight to ensure economic accountability and equitable development on behalf of the people of this nation. Thus far, this debate has demonstrated the vast difference between the UNC's vision, commitment, and dedication to rebuilding your country, Trinidad and Tobago, versus this PNM government's dismal track record over the last 9 years and counting. On Friday last, the Leader of the Opposition exemplified why the UNC is the only choice to secure Trinidad and Tobago, as she presented a budget response which served as a roadmap to rebuild, restore, enrich, and empower every citizen of this nation. Even if I could get you to remove that. While the Minister of Finance ignored the country's wide hardship, the nationwide lack of opportunity, and the daily decline in our standard of living during his 5 hours and 12-minute presentation, the Leader of the Opposition placed people at the center of her plan, which caters to citizens for all walks of life and every community. And I asked every citizen to get a copy of the speech of the Leader of the Opposition that she presented on Friday, and you would see and hear and read and touch and feel her plans for this country. This morning, right here on Sunday here, I want to remind the country of her proposals, which will restore the socio-economic stability of our nation. And I want to repeat some of that. The UNC, in her proposal, the Leader of the Opposition, rejects the unjust 4% and 5% imposed on all state sector workers and commits to engage in the free and fair collective bargaining process through the office of the CPO. That is her proposal. That is our proposal. We are committing to free and fair collective bargaining process. We commit to that for the workers of our country. The UNC is committed to creating a living wage to ensure that all workers earn sufficient salaries to support themselves and their families comfortable. But yet, the PNM says, Prime Minister says, difficult years ahead. After 10 years in control of this country, we agree and will allow for the right to bear, for citizens to bear arms or modify the current legislation to make acquiring firearms or by law-abiding citizens easier. We agree to pass stand your ground legislation and laws through robust incentives and support for farmers, our farmers. A UNC government will reduce the food import bill. We will establish a full-fledged, and here is one which I am dear to, we will establish a full-fledged technical university, a TechVoc university, to provide the highest level of technical vocational training, including a technical vocational teacher training division, independently and including private-public partnership. Provisions of tablets and laptops to facilitate digital learning, research, and technological competence. We are prepared to do that. We will do it. And when you ask where we finding the money from, I will tell you in a bit. We will introduce under the member for Superior, our leader, we will introduce back the baby grant that so many single mothers in our country have been crying out for on a daily basis, and they have been messaging the member for Superior, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, pleading with her when she returns to government to bring back that baby grant. We will review and update the CDAT program that is so vital for our citizens of our country, streamlining the medication and increasing services in the rural communities. We will complete the construction, equipment, and authorization of the dialysis center clinic at all major hospitals with the relevant staff to enable 24-hour dialysis. And I want to put it here now, and when I was going through her speech, there's something that I feel that given in our society, the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar said that once we go back into power, she will institute and ensure that we have a stroke rehabilitation center for those individuals in our society who get strokes and suffer from strokes. UNC revenue generation. So we have plans, and we'll tell you how we will generate the revenue. Those on the other side would try to raise doubt by asking how will the UNC raise revenue for these projects. The answer is simple. The UNC will restore the productivity of this nation's energy sector to return investment for the people of our nation on their natural resources. The UNC under Kamala Prasad-Bissessar will make our energy sector competitive once more, return oil and gas production to sustainable levels, and secure the downstream sector to earn revenue, foreign exchange, and create jobs. We did it between 2010 and 2015, short 5 years, and we will do it again under Kamala Prasad-Bissessar. On Friday, the leader of the opposition rightly called out the state of the energy sector, which has now become the Rust Belt. According to the central bank data, the numbers of persons with jobs in the energy sector fell from 20,500 in 2015 to under 10,000 in 2023, a decline of over 49.3% in our energy sector. And we asked the question on Friday, where all those professional individuals who used to be employed in our energy sector, where have they gone? Are they home jobless? Have they migrated because you cannot get a job in our energy sector anymore? We asked those questions, and we will return job opportunities to this country, especially in the energy sector. Our national oil production is now at the 1938 levels, never before. Under this government, they have destroyed our oil production. Don't even talk about our gas production, which is at its lowest ever. And in Point Lisa's industry, the companies in Point Lisa's industrial estate, they are struggling to get gas to run efficiently their companies. They are all operating under 70% capacity. When we look at the data, and that is why we are saying that this government has caused the energy sector into a Rust Belt. Our lowest production since 1928, our lowest gas production in 20 years, the most plant closures in the last 9 years and counting. Point Lisa's has lost its competitive and attractive edge due to some bad Houston negotiations, fall in every metric such as employment and drilling in our country. The leader of the opposition told us on Friday in a presentation that this government boasts about the heritage profitability. The company, when they destroyed Petrotrin and they broke it up, they formed a company called Heritage. And they boast about the heritage profitability, and we feel it's hollow and vacuous. Petrotrin's exploration and production unit, now Heritage, which used to be called Trinma, was always profitable. We keep saying that, and the leader of the opposition is correct. They highlight that Petrotrin and Trinma produced more oil than Heritage. We highlight that Petrotrin was profitable and earned foreign exchange for our country. We highlight that this government actually said Petrotrin was key to our foreign reserves as well as our oil production, and it is there in the record in the first couple budgets back in 2016 and 17. The Minister of Finance used to praise and said Petrotrin was a net earner of foreign exchange for our country and is a valuable asset for our citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It is there in his budget statements. They seem to forget. On Friday, the Minister of Energy try to rebut the leader of the opposition with cross-border gas promises, but they are not guaranteed. This government is telling us, hold strain till 2027, 2028. They really don't know if anything is really going to happen in the year 2027. And the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy is saying, hold strain for 2 to 3 years, and a boom is coming after that. So they are telling this country, the citizens of our nation, don't do anything. Difficult times ahead for the next 3 years. Don't do anything. Try and survive, because a boom is coming in 2027, 2028. So what do you do if that was really to happen? What do you do to survive for the next 3 years? They have not told us how they will do it, how to survive for the next 3 years, because all you're saying, difficult times ahead for us for the next 2 to 3 years. Even the Minister of Finance, back in June the 6th, in an affidavit, is saying, when he did an affidavit, and you really can't lie on an affidavit, and he's saying, the next 3 years will be challenging. These are the words of the Minister of Finance, not our words. So who do we believe? Because do we believe that the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Energy, who do we believe to try and survive for the next 3 years? They have been in control of this country for the last 9 to 10 years. If the difficult times are coming, it is because it is due to their inefficiency or bad management of our country. That is what the opposition has been saying for the last 9 years. We do the work. We keep telling the nation. We keep giving you the information. Yet for somehow, you are not hearing it. But now that the Prime Minister is telling you, difficult years ahead, and you have to ask your question, why are difficult years ahead? Who was in charge of running this country that is putting us again in jeopardy? We just came out of COVID between the years 2020 to 2022. 2 difficult years. And in the world, it was difficult times. In the world. And now the Prime Minister is coming to tell you, hold strain, hold forth. 3 more years of difficultness is coming. And be prepared for the boom in 2028. If we are alive when that happens, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, when you listen and you really review what the leader of the opposition presented on Monday, it is really an excellent piece of document, excellent policies. We have a plan to take this country forward. We have the will and the expertise and the people to do it. Between 2010 and 2015, no other government was able to achieve what Mrs. Prasad Bisesa and her team did between 2010 and 2015. The most amount of schools were built. Our infrastructure was second to none. Not like today, pothole after pothole. Our grants were there. People were smiling when they walked the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. Crime was down. People were happy. For the last 9 years, it has not been so, ladies and gentlemen. When you look at under energy, as I said, oil production is down, gas production is down. This government is now calling about cross-border energy with the Dragon gas in Manatee and in Manakin. They have not been able to tell us when we will be getting first gas in any of these projects. Any of these projects. They did 4 bid rounds in the last 9 years to try and give us, with the energy companies in our country. It all failed. They never did proper incentivization to our energy companies to be able to entice them to go and find oil and gas. And they're now playing catch up. That is why the Prime Minister And the Minister of Energy could come and say, we are in difficult times for the next 2 to 3 years because they are playing catch up. When the opposition used to be telling them, do not put all your eggs in that cross-border arrangement that you are trying to work out with Venezuela. That is fine, but do not put, while you're doing that, ensure that your home in our waters are well oiled, and no pun intended, and the drilling continues to find oil and gas. And the reports are there that we have it in our territorial waters. It is not that we don't have it. All that this government needs to do is to incentivize the energy companies, to encourage them to continue the work to explore and find oil and gas. Oh, the reports are there. When you look at Point Lisas has been a failure, and the companies are crying out for gas over the last 9 years, the largest shutdown of plants. When you look at NGC made a loss underneath them for the first time, the national gas company, of $2.1 billion. They made a loss underneath them. When you look at Petrotrin, and I want to ask a question, we all know the history of Petrotrin. They shut it down in November 2018 and sent home everybody. They decimated the small and medium businesses in the fence line community like Marabella, Gasparillo, and other areas. Even their own constituency of San Fernando East and San Fernando West. They talked about creating jobs to replace Petrotrin. Up to today, they have not done that. I want to ask a question. I asked it on Friday when I was debating. What is happening with the pension fund of the retirees of Petrotrin? Those retirees. I understand September, a few days last week, that for the first time, their pension payments they received it late. For the first time, and a lot of them got scared. A lot of them got worried because never before that their pension payments were ever late. And they started to worry if this is signs to come. So we are asking this government, the Minister of Finance, to come clean on what is the health of that pension plan for the retirees of Petrotrin. They are also asking the question. So we are their voice here this morning. I am asking the question on behalf of those retirees that reside and live, especially in the community of Pointe-a-Pierre, in the Marabella and Batu areas, and throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. There are a lot of retirees of Petrotrin who depend on that pension. They gave their blood, sweat, and tears for that company called Petrotrin in our oil and gas industry. Right? They had a medical plan because of the nature of the job that they did that was destroyed by this government. And they are fearful about their pension today. So I am not crying wolf. I am not trying to create fear. This is the reality of what is going on with those retirees. When you talk about Paria, I would have thought in that budget statement that we witnessed on the 30th of September that the Minister Imbert would have mentioned something about the Paria family divers, the families of those divers. Not a word. Even when the Minister of Energy spoke, those families were wondering if something would have been said to give them hope that they would get some sort of compensation. Not a word was said by both the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Energy. When you look at the plant called Naikwan, which was the old WGTL that created over $2.5 billion in debt by the late Malcolm Jones in that era, and we as a country suffering because of that. They sold it to Naikwan for a peppercorn rate. And that Naikwan plant was supposed, when it was first opened by the Prime Minister Rowley, Prime Minister Rowley talked about creating this Naikwan plant is diversification and the future. And the country was enjoying over 2-point-something billion in taxes. Well, up to today, the plant blew up and we're still waiting on some sort of return. And on top of that, that Naikwan company is owing the taxpayers of this country money for gas that they received and they have not paid. When you look at renewable energy in this budget, renewable energy is just lip service by this government. In the last 9+ years, they have not done anything in renewable. But it sounds good when you say that you have plans and policies for renewable energy in our country. And you come back in this budget statement, and when you read it, in the last 9 years, they did nothing in renewable energy. And the Minister of Finance puts a plan for renewable energy, but in 5 years, in 2030, they will grow it by 30%. They have not grown anything in renewable energy in the last 9 years. But it's a buzzword. It is a buzzword because it sounds good. It sounds good internationally. It sounds good with the environmentalists. It sounds good, but they are not doing anything. When you listen to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, you read her plans and policies, we have a plan to really drive renewable energy in our country when we go back into government. We have the political will to make it happen, not this government. So the biggest achievement in renewable energy is last month, Minister of Energy went and activate or cut the ribbon for EV, electric vehicle, charging station in Queen's Hall. So when you go to attend any function or play or concert in Queen's Hall, you could charge your vehicle. That is what their renewable energy is about. The solar voltaic farm that they are building, they had designed 2. One in Clarkson Bay that is being presently built out by BP and Shell and NGC. And the other one, the plans were designed in the St. Augustine area. That has been scrapped. Not a word from this government why that project was scrapped. And we asked the question, what is going on those lands that was designed to do the solar voltaic farm in St. Augustine area? Not a word, ladies and gentlemen. All our metrics are down. So when you look at the policies of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa in energy, on the way forward in energy, I just want to read out a few. And I quote, Madam Speaker, I quote her words, to save this economy from the economic slow death that is now in the throes of that is now happening. When we return to office, we will revitalize the energy sector. That is not just lip service words, ladies and gentlemen out there. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has a track record of delivery in her government in 2010 and 2015. She also said we'll revise the system of fiscal incentives to continue drilling. Drilling in our country has declined by 56.9% from 2015 to 2023. That is at the heart of our production decline. She also said we will assess the efficacy of the structure of state enterprises to determine the appropriate model to tackle the issues of declining production and energy transition. She also said we will incentivize and work with the energy companies to make it attractive for them to continue finding and exploring for oil and gas in our country. She said so, ladies and gentlemen. We have a great policy on renewable energy. We have the will to do it. And as I come to an end, there is something that I want to ask in a few minutes that I want to wrap up. Minister Young on Friday made a statement somewhere that whatever gas deal that he's arranging in the cross-border in Venezuela, that if we were when we go into government, that gas deal is unlikely to happen under the UNC. And the reason why he's saying that, the only reason why he's saying that, is because when they had the last election, not the one a few months ago in July, the one before, when they had a gentleman in the opposition called Juan Guaido. And we and the opposition supported Juan Guaido. Not only us in the opposition. At the time, the President of the United States was President Trump. President Trump supported Juan Guaido as the true president of Venezuela. And that is why I said on Friday, geopolitical issues in that cross-border gas deal, it is very sensitive. Even a couple months ago in July, when they had the last elections in Venezuela, and the opposition then had said that they won convincingly, even this present US government, the Democrats led by President Biden, the Secretary of State, Secretary Blinken, had put out a statement that they are in support of the opposition gentleman Gonzalez. We didn't say that. So we asked the question. We understand the geopolitics of Venezuela. We understand it, and it is very sensitive. So for Minister Young to come and say that it is unlikely that we will get the gas if we were to come into power, is because whatever he's doing, or this government is doing with that present Venezuelan government, we will find out. We will find out, ladies and gentlemen. And the geopolitics that is happening between us and Venezuela and the world, it is very sensitive. Ladies and gentlemen, I really ask you all, and there's an article in the papers today, there are two issues I want to raise. Deficit danger. It's called deficit danger. And an economist is saying, not our words, not the opposition, continued deficit could crash Trinidad and Tobago economy. Continued deficits could crash Trinidad and Tobago economy. And in this article, your economist, Dr. Darren Conrad, is saying, for the last 9 years, this government has been running heavy deficits and borrowings. You would have heard from the leader of the opposition, the borrowings by this government over the last 9 years on counting, including what they have said they will come to borrow in this fiscal, will be over $120 billion that you, the taxpayers, have to pay back. So the UE economist, Dr. Darren Conrad, says continued deficit could crash the TNT economy. We have been saying that. Everybody has been saying that. But yet, this government pays no attention to what is being said about running deficits upon deficits upon deficits for the last 9 years, ladies and gentlemen. And this is something troubling. It is something troubling. And what is also curious, every year a budget is presented. Every year a budget is presented. These economists that we have, these so-called consultants in accounting firms, they always come out and praise the budgets presented by the Minister of Finance. And they would never take the time and analyze what really transpired 12 months after. They would never take the time to analyze properly what really transpired for the last 12 months that happened in our country. And no one never took the time to analyze the affidavits of Minister of Finance. The opposition did. The opposition did. We know they have put us, this administration has put us in troubling times. And you see this book called The Review of the Economy? I said it on Friday. You see this book? It's presented by the Minister of Finance. And the Minister of Finance hopes that we don't read this book, because this is a very dangerous book. It really tells the true picture of what has been happening in our economy, in our country for the last 12 months and counting backwards. And the numbers here and the numbers here do add up. It do add up. And I ask the pundits, the experts, please do the job and review this book. Don't just look at this and take this for granted that this is what will happen. It doesn't happen. This is the book to read. This is the book to read. All right? So, ladies and gentlemen, there's one other issue that I want to talk about. It's fuel subsidy. And I'll just quickly say that this country, in my view, has been misleading you, the population, of what is the true value of fuel subsidy that they make you feel that they are paying. And we call upon the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Energy to liberalize our fuel at our gas stations. You promised that. You promised that a couple of years ago that you would liberalize our fuel prices at the gas station. That has yet to be done. I think personally the opposition feels that we are being overcharged at the pump in certain fuels, and that fuel subsidy that year upon year that you came at mid-year review, and I say at mid-year review, you brought us in Parliament to approve an additional $500 million. You had allocated for the fiscal year 23-24, $500 million. You came again in mid-year review and told us that you need another additional $500 million for fuel subsidy. We approved that in the Parliament. When we checked the yellow books, and you should have seen at least $1 billion as the amount spent in 2024, the figure that is in the book is $470 million that was spent. So we are asking, what did we really approve? And if we approve additional $500 million towards the original $500 million, and you've not seen that $1 billion figure, where's the rest of that money? Where did it go? Was it used somewhere else? And if it was used somewhere else, come and tell us where it was used, because we came to Parliament to approve fuel subsidy. So if you use it somewhere else, tell us where it was used. And one last thing, ladies and gentlemen. There was an issue that started to circulate yesterday about the Hyatt, our Hyatt Hotel, and asks that if you visit the Hyatt in a social media release or statement, that you cannot pay with TT dollars. Hyatt belongs to you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Not Hyatt. It's just named Hyatt, but it is our asset. We live in Trinidad and Tobago. Our currency is Trinidad and Tobago currency, not US dollars. And we are asking a question because Hyatt backtracked when they started to get the negative responses on social media about what they were trying to do. And they backtracked for now. So we are asking the Minister of Finance, who is responsible for that Hyatt Hotel, to come clean with this nation to tell us why would Hyatt want to charge the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago if you go there to get a meal, to get a cup of coffee, to do anything in the Hyatt, you have to pay with US dollars, right? Where we get in the US dollars to pay if we go into Hyatt and we work for TT dollars? Where we get in TT US dollars to do that as normal citizens of our country? Ladies and gentlemen, take note of what is happening in your country. Take note what this government is doing to us in our country. Elections are near, ladies and gentlemen. Do not take God off your thought when that election bell is rung. We cannot survive, even using the Prime Minister's words. We are in difficult times. They cannot run this country. We gave them, you gave them 9+ years. We beg, do not give them another 5 years. The UNC is the only party that can bring back your standard of living in Trinidad and Tobago. So with those few words, ladies and gentlemen, I am open with my colleague, Ms. Vandana Mohit, member of Chaguanas East, if there are any questions at this point in time.
Yeah, I have a question here from Akash Samaru, CNC3. The first question is, MP Lee, what is your take on the current impasse between the OWTU's Patriotic Energy and the Energy Minister, where Stuart Young alleged that Patriotic used a fake wire transfer document in its bid to purchase the refinery?
My response to Akash on that is that is a matter between Patriotic Technologies and the Evaluation Committee, and even Minister Young, who seems to have gotten that information in his mailbox that he said in his contribution on Friday. So I would leave it there. We have nothing to do with that deal. We don't know anything about that deal or any of the bids that was put in by any other companies that would have sought to try and buy the refinery. So we leave it between Patriotic and the government to sort that out.
He has a follow-up question which may have been answered, but I'll ask it since he sent it. Patriotic has sent out 2 responses thus far, but neither frontally addresses the claim that a fake wire transfer was sent to the Evaluation Committee. Do you think they should just come out and say whether or not such a document exists, and if it was in fact submitted to the Evaluation Committee?
Again, it is not our view to come out in anything in addressing any concerns with what is happening between Stuart Young and Patriotic Technologies. That is not our concern.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No more questions.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to myself and my colleague, my sister. I call her my young sister, dynamic Vandana Mohit, the Member of Parliament for Shogunas East. I listened to her before I end on Friday when she was debating, and I want to say I was very impressed with what the concerns that she would have raised for her constituents of Shogunas East. And that tells me that our member is on the ground, working with the people of Shogunas East and understanding their needs, and we are in opposition. I personally know that she tries her best to assist the constituents of Shogunas East, being an opposition member of Parliament, which we do not have any facilities, any financing, but yet she seems to be able to get to help the needs of the constituents of Shogunas East. Before I end, I want to say thanks to our opposition leader for a very concise, clear, and dynamic presentation on Friday in her presentation. I asked all members of our society to get a copy of her speech, go through it, and you will hear in the coming tomorrow, we restart the debate for Budget 2025 in the Parliament chambers at 10 a.m. And I am sure later this week, as some of our MPs who shadow key portfolios, as they end their debate, we will continue our weekly press conference to bring more information to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And when you ask if the opposition is not working, we have been working 24/7 for you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I bless you. I thank you. Have a great Sunday. And we in the opposition continue the work to deliver to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Again, I thank you.
Do you know that in 2016, 66 liters of diesel cost $100? Today, under the PNM, you get 20 liters of diesel for $100. The diesel you paid $100 for under the UNC now costs $327 under the PNM, which directly affects the cost of food, transport, and services. Guess who I'm voting for next time?
Everybody now, let's go.